Right, here we are in Dublin City with Andrew McCarroll. This is episode 4 now of Mono with Mono. It's been quite a few months since I've done the last one. Obviously, I've been very busy with Limor and I've been concentrating on the business side of things. But I'm delighted to have Andrew here, who's just recently joined the Limor Conspiracy. Can't remember exactly how we got in touch. Was it over Facebook originally?
Twitter or Facebook, sorry, yeah. I was doing the reviews for the WWE of all things.
Oh, was that actually?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
I was interviewing Finn Balor and I got a mail from you on the back of that.
Oh,
so of course, seeing me interview wrestlers, you thought straight away, yep, your movie reviews, that's what it is.
Exactly, yeah. Jesus, I couldn't remember. Was it wrestling? That's interesting. But yeah, no, I reached out. I looked at your stuff then as well, and I was very impressed by it. I'm a big movie fan myself, big wrestling fan. So I said I'm sure we'll have something in common to talk about, which will lead into hopefully getting you involved in Limor in some way. And you joined up with us, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah, about 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah, it's great. So before we get into that, I suppose when any time I meet with people, it's kind of the layout of us: who, what, where, when, why, and how. So we'll start off. Give us a little bit of who you are.
Yeah, well, started off initially, I had injured myself playing football, and I was, playing that 3-4 times a week. I found myself at a loose end with nothing to do. Always been a big movie fan since when I was a kid, and I used to charge my neighbours to bust their ghosts dressed in my Egon Spengler uniform, and kind of got into that. So I started writing off to a few websites, things like doing movie reviews or television reviews, seeing if any of them bit. On the back of that, then I was asked to go on Spin 1038 to talk about. I'd done a feature about The Amazing Spider-Man. They'd released 40 minutes of footage of the film before it had been released, and someone had put together a cut of the movie on YouTube. So I was kind of talking about, the evolution of trailers, about how they're kind of giving away too much. That went actually really well, and then that turned into a weekly feature, kind of like a stray dog. Once you feed me once, you couldn't get me away from the door then. So on the back of that, then I've been kind of able to interview people like Russell Crowe, Benedict Cumberbatch, Mark Wahlberg, Will Ferrell. So it's kind of spawned from this Astro Park injury to all of a sudden being able to stand in front of an interview, people who I've admired and looked up to for years.
Brilliant. When was that injury, or when?
About 5 years ago now. 5 years ago. Right,
and that first review you did, was it similar to like how I got in touch with you? Did they just saw it on the internet, or? Yeah,
that's how it was. What I done was, this was kind of the start of kind of spamming people on Twitter. So if I wrote anything, I was kind of going on to things like Dave Fanning. Gordon Hayden was the one who actually. Yeah, so kind of on the back of that, then was able to go on and started up doing like things like red carpet interviews. So I've had a couple of them go absolutely fucking disastrously, and some of them go really, really well. So next phase of that hopefully is going to be Limor. I'm really looking forward to what we can do with that, and kind of the interaction with that is something new. And I think especially with someone like me, with movies, people like me that are really kind of passionate about this. And you might have only one person in your group of friends that wants to dissect 25 minutes of what Predator is about, and then.
And it's funny you mention that. Have you noticed the song? Yeah. I don't. That's not Long Tall Sally. It's Tutti Frutti. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny you mention that, because one thing I've enjoyed since we started talking with each other is we have common interests in the movie and stuff, but the fact that we have started abusing each other so early on into a relationship knows you generally get on well with someone. So yeah, on to Predator. We'll be jumping back and forth. That's what's great about traditional podcasting, or casting as it is on Limor, is you can talk about anything. But Predator, one of my favourite movies of all time, and there's a new movie coming out as well, which is, it's not really a remake, or what is it?
No, it's this is the new thing now that the Halloween seems to have started, where they're kind of picking and choosing what they're actually going to be referencing. Like the new Halloween film is going to just, pretty much from the first Halloween film on, none of that happened. They kind of even have that line in the trailer, famously Mike Myers is Laurie Strode's brother. There's a line in there which says, no, that was just a rumour somebody made up. So they're kind of getting rid of everything else. Terminator, the new Terminator, is doing the same. It's going to follow off Terminator 2 and ignore everything else. Predator seems to be doing the same. There's not going to be any references to Alien versus Predator. Apparently, because Gary Busey, who was in Predator 2, his son is in this one, and there's going to be some connection there. But I don't think they're going to, the mythos that's set up, I don't think they're going to be too involved in that. So it'll be kind of interesting to see that.
It's quite noisy. Yeah. Bear with us on that, guys. Folks, we're in a busy hotel restaurant here. On the Predator side of stuff, that's very interesting. I actually do like the way they link back to mythos or history of previous, and the Gary Busey thing is. I think originally that was written for Arnie, was it? Was he meant to be in that? Did he turn that down?
Yeah, it's not that was supposed to be when you come in at the end. The kind of the agent who behind the glass essentially was going to be Arnie, and he was supposed to be the one running the operation with that. It kind of evolved. It wasn't exactly the same character, but it evolved. It was going to be Dutch, was running this kind of mobile strike unit to kind of take them down. They changed it because they were kind of hoping that if Predator 2 done well, Arnie would come back for Predator 3. And I reckon he's going to be involved in this one because there's a very similar scene in the trailer where they're interviewing Boyd Holbrook's character about what happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be, you might get the Arnie cameo there. He seems a lot more open to doing things now than he used to.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Like I asked him.
This is very busy. I think it's Sunday Mass here. I'll just go with that. And here we go again. Sorry for the noise. We were just making a point there. We were sitting here for maybe an hour chatting away, and there wasn't a noise. I could hear a pin drop, and then, of course, the minute we start chatting on this podcast, it gets very busy. But anyway, where were we in terms of the...
so what I'm really kind of looking forward to is the writer-director of this is Shane Black, who wrote the first one. He was also Hawkins in the first film. And him and his writing partner, can you tell me who that was?
His writing partner for the current one?
Yeah.
No, go on, hit me.
Fred Decker. So that makes them Black and Decker.
Oh, Jesus. So we're going to edit that out again.
You were now fired from
if we had a few sound effects, we could do,
Dum.
Yeah. Here we go, take 3. So we stopped it again. Noise. Right, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm really looking. This is the one I'm kind of that and Halloween because I'm kind of child of an 80s and 90s growing up. These are the two I'm really looking forward to, and I think it's something that they've kind of changed. It used to be this, things like Zoolander and Anchorman where you're just doing straight sequels, and I like the idea of kind of picking and choosing what you've done. I think the Marvel movies are kind of responsible for that, where everything has to be a shared universe. You saw that with the Mummy last year with Tom Cruise's thing.
I didn't actually get it. Was that any good? I didn't get to see it.
It's not bad, but what they tried to do was they tried to make 10 films before they made one. So it was that the photo with Johnny Depp as the Invisible Man, you had Bride of Frankenstein, Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll, and they were like, oh, we've got this 15 film mark that you're coming in. It's like, well, make one good film first before you do that, which is what things like The Predator used to do, where just make one good film. If that's good, then we'll make a second. We're not setting up world building straight away.
Yeah, and it's funny, as you said, the thing that got you into movies in the first place is kind of looking at trailers and how they're potentially ruining movies, and the importance of a trailer. Because I saw the original one, leaks, or Shane Black put it out on his Twitter, little small clips, and said that looks interesting. Then I saw the extended trailer, and I said, I don't like the look of that at all. And then I saw the trailer on TV last night, which was a more shortened version, and I said, that looks great.
Yeah.
So,
See, what they're doing with that is they're not selling the film, they're selling what you want based on a reaction. Like, I think Predators, and the prime example of that for me this year has been Venom. So the first Venom trailer, the one with Tom Hardy, they kind of tied into the Spider-Man universe. What they done with the first trailer was that they made it look like a horror film. And Venom wasn't in the trailer at all. You just heard the voiceover at the end. And then, of course, the internet went ballistic. And it's like, you do plan to have Venom in your Venom trailer, yeah?
Yeah.
Then the second film came out, which was nothing. Yeah. So then the second trailer for Venom was just nothing but Venom. And then the third one again, you've just got this, the whole. It pretty much gives away the whole beat for beat of the film. You've got that terrible line where he's in the supermarket, I'll attack you like a turd in the street down the road. And what the fuck are you talking about? And then it ends with what I think is the last, like you see who's going to be, the surprise villain at the end, which is something they done with the Spider-Man film as well, where they gave away the last, scenes of the film.
Yeah.
So what they've kind of done as well is they're trying to make you go into a film and be familiar before you've actually gone into it. So it's taking away the element of surprise. You feel safe going into it. So I'm going to get my money's worth because I'm expecting this, and this. So there's no room for surprises. Like things with like the Mission Impossible trailer giving away the last action scenes and that. And there's a great actually interview with Christopher McQuarrie, the director, that where he's told by the marketing team, look, we're not going to spend 30-40 million on a shot in the film and not have it in the trailer and risk people not being seen it. And another thing I know we're kind of harping on about trailers now is that I don't know if you've noticed now lately, they've got like these little 5-6 second clips at the start of the trailers. And again, this is kind of the marketing thing where they have the trailer for the trailer, before the trailer.
Yeah.
So you've got a 5-second little clip of, explosions, car crash, that just kind of, because your attention for a minute and a half or 2 minutes of a trailer isn't enough. You have to have the 5-6 seconds to get you into the 1.5 minutes. So it's just kind of reducing audiences' attention span. And I think we were speaking earlier about things like Netflix, where I don't think, audiences are being rewarded. You're not getting those mid-budget films, like Seven or like Zodiac, where, you build up a story for 30, 40 minutes and then, the reward is payoff. They kind of want that instant gratification now. And I think that's very much the detriment of films and to the quality of films as well.
Yeah, and that, I think, ties into the society as a whole at the moment with social media, and something that hopefully Limor will change with social audio. Another cheap plug in there, but well, definitely with the growth of podcasting, people, there's a call for the more long form, more in depth content, because you can get so much more out of that, And I think with trailers, like for example, in my own experience, it's so much better when you see a trailer. Oh, that looks interesting. You don't know much about the movie. You go in and it's brilliant. Yeah. Like Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring was a perfect example of that for me. It was like, I don't know how many seconds the trailer was just, that looks interesting, and I was blown away by it. And another one, quite different movie to Lord of the Rings, was Taken. Yeah. Well, Liam Neeson now is a famous franchise. The first one, we talk about trilogies and stuff, we may forget the other ones, but the first one especially, I saw the trailer and it's like Liam Neeson, great actor, seems interesting. I'll give it a shot. And then I was just kind of, I went with my friend Jamie Hagan, if you're listening. We were playing rugby at the time, and we just went during lunchtime. And I think there was only 3 people in the cinema, and we just kept looking at each other. I said, "This is amazing. This just keeps getting better and better and better." So, like you say,
but films like that, I think they're kind of disappearing. And I think something like Taken, where you describe, that was supposed to be like a kind of straight to video Euro action film that wasn't even supposed to get a release, and things like that. And John Wick, they're the ones that are like, you'll remember them. They're like you were saying there, you remember the story of going to see that. Like if I told you, do you remember where you were for the last 15? I got to keep harping on with the Marvel blockbusters, even though I like them. But can you remember where you were for the last 5 of them you've seen? They've all just blended into one film essentially, and I think the storytelling aspect of that is disappearing because of things like people's attention spans. And again, not to pitch as an ad for Limor, that's something I really enjoy about the Limor app, is that you have kind of a long form discussion in that. So you can have somebody record like a 2-minute comment, things we were talking about, like the James Bond drama last week, and of course that's evolved again since, with Danny Boyle dropping out. But I like the fact that you can have somebody give, like, rather than having to type out a comment, or like Twitter where everyone's just angry at each other, you can have like a 2-minute, here's what I think, here's my my start, middle and end of my point. And I think for something, like movies are my passion, and I like having that kind of interaction with people, to have like their different various opinions on something that's very niche. Like, you're not, your group of friends, as we said earlier, you're not going to have, everyone in the group isn't going to be a big film fan. He can discuss, the cinematography of Tarantino in any sort of depth with them.
Yeah, and that's a good segue on to Tarantino, another absolute legend when it comes to films. We were having a go at Netflix this week, but in fairness to them, they have a lot of Tarantino's movies on it, and one which I couldn't, for whatever reason, the amount of DVD stores I went into to find The Hateful Eight. I'm just getting very noisy here again. Hold on again a second, folks. Yeah, so I was looking for The Hateful Eight, couldn't find it anywhere, and then recently enough on Netflix, recently added Hateful Eight, and it was the first time I had seen it since I saw it in the cinema. Yeah. And it was brilliant. Like Tarantino is just a different animal when it comes to movies, and I think he's on 8, is it?
This will be his 9th now. Well, it depends on if you count Kill Bill as 1 or 2, and then his little section of 4 rooms as well.
Yeah. Do you think he'll actually quit at the 10?
No, definitely not. No, I hope not. Anyway, because there's so few filmmakers like him. You've him like maybe David Fincher as well, Christopher Nolan, people who are making original films, and I think that's slowly disappearing. And I've been like Tarantino kind of came out, I was everyone the typical angry teenager, and then you see things like Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, this kind of revolution of cinema that you'd gone from things like Van Damme and Seagal and Arnie, these kind of puffed up action heroes, to all of a sudden these really complex crime dramas. And that's something like I really, really enjoyed, and that really spoke to me, like Usual Suspects, films like that. Like, they're the films I really enjoy, and I think the last 10, 15 years they've really disappeared. And I know we've been harping on about Netflix as well, but I think that's what I was kind of hoping that would be, that you'd have films like Zodiac, like Seven, like The Usual Suspects on that. And it hasn't really become that. It's just become, the bottom shelf of a video shop, put front and centre, films that you would never see normally.
I think like most things like that, it comes down to commerce and money, and a lot of the big studios, I think, are still a bit wary of Netflix, and it threatens their business, so they're not giving them the rights to a lot of what they create. And then the other side of it is those Asian movies. Asia is a massive market, so we'll take these crappy movies and we'll make money and keep us ticking over.
But it's kind of filmmaking by, like, it's not filmmaking for quality, it's filmmaking by kind of algorithm, I feel that it is. So I think it's very interesting that Netflix don't release things like viewing figures or how long people have watched. And I think I've started to kind of see the patterns in it. If you watch the binge watch the TV shows, like they're Netflix original ones, not something like Power gets released week to week, but that's not
great show, by the way.
Not a Netflix show though.
What?
That's not a Netflix
true.
show.
Yeah,
it's made by Stars, so that's on a network TV. So they have to keep your attention week to week. So if you notice, Power tends to end, like this season hasn't been fantastic, but now it's kind of ramping up. Everything's ending on a cliffhanger to get you back, because they need you week to week. Whereas if you're watching something like, the first Stranger Things, fantastic, but the second season, nothing happens until every third or fourth episode, because I reckon they've worked out that people will watch in increments of 3 or 4. So every third or fourth episode will be just enough to get you to come back to watch the next show then. So I reckon they've kind of figured out what the people are watching. I think that's what was interesting. We had things like Will Smith, they kind of had that,
You threw that into the crappy movie basket, didn't you? Yeah. I actually enjoyed that. I thought it was good.
It was very average.
For Netflix original. I thought, maybe that's just me.
Like, if you paid 15 quid to see that in the cinema, would you be coming out going, you have to go and see Bright?
Probably not. Probably not.
That's my argument, is that you've kind of, like you said there, he's like, that was, like, and everyone's reaction to that was, you should watch this. This is okay. And it's like, okay isn't brilliant. Like, you're only saying it's okay because of the convenience of sitting in your house and watching it. If you had to venture outside, pay, your 15 quid to go and see it, and then your popcorn, your drink, like, you wouldn't have ran out of Bright and go, look, you have to go and see this film. It's just like, if you're stuck and there's nothing else to watch, like, I think there's too much emphasis on okay being, passable, being the new good, essentially.
Well, I think then you're kind of getting into the whole thing about going to the cinema is more than just seeing a movie, isn't it? It's a social thing that you do with your friends or family, whatever the case may be, and it could be added as part of an evening. So, like, you go see Bright and you're on a first date, or you're with friends and it's a great evening, it makes the movie experience better. So there's a few things that are thrown in there. Maybe getting a bit going down the Jordan Peterson angle of psychology, but I think it does matter, and like, that's what I like about the cinema is the experience of it, getting in and sitting in the chair and the audience there and people enjoying a moment of time at the same, like, when I went to see the Avengers, the recent one, what's it called again, with the Thanos? Infinity War, and the place was packed. There was, it seemed like when you go to a football match, when you watch a game at home is one thing, but you don't get experience the atmosphere, and people were clapping and you get all that kind of adds to the experience, which you lose.
And that's how I kind of got started. Like, I remember going to see Ghostbusters and going to see Batman in the old Savoy, and just that, like back in the day, like, this was kind of obviously pre-internet and things like that, where, America and Hollywood was this mythical place you never got to see, and seeing, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, 20 feet on the screen, or seeing, Batman, this, I'd only kind of seen the Adam West TV show repeats that were on, or I read, like, the comics that were there, and seeing this character that I'd loved being brought to life, and just, like, remembering, like, the anticipation, like, months, like the little snippets, the newspapers cutting them out, waiting for this to come out. And I kind of miss that atmosphere they have now, and I think it's being diluted now, especially, like, I've seen things like they're trying to have, like, Shazam during the film, or like interactive screenings with your phone, or I got to interview the Russo brothers who directed Infinity War, and their big thing that they're talking about now is AR, which is kind of alternate reality. So what would happen is you'd reach a certain point of the film, and then the audience would vote on where the story gets to go next. And I'm like, I don't want that. Or you have things like 4DX where you're getting sprayed in the face with a fucking wind machine or a rain machine. It's like, I don't want that. That's kind of at the detriment of the stories. And if you watch, like, when 3D started, every film was trying to, like, poke you in the face for about 5 years, and it was like, things like Clash of the Titans and the Final Destination films doing really well, but if you watch them at home, like, they're not good films, they're gimmicks. And I kind of don't want that. I want to go back to kind of people like Tarantino or like David Fincher, where you enjoy the film as opposed to the gimmick.
And that you talk about the AR, alternate reality, and the audience chooses. Sometimes the audience aren't always right, you know. Generally, they're not. Like, you bring up Shawshank Redemption. You know, imagine Andy Dufresne and the audience decide, oh no, he doesn't escape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, it ruins the whole movie and the experience.
But I don't want to be second guessed. Like, I'm not a better storyteller than Stephen King was for Shot, or Frank Darabont who directed it. Like, you take out the element of surprise, and you take out things that make you love films. Is that element. Like, I remember seeing like The Usual Suspects, and that scene at the end, with the limp straightens. So like imagine the audience is getting to vote before that. Does his limp straighten up? Is he Kaiser Soze, or is Gabriel Bourne?
Yeah.
It would just ruin it. It's not filmmaking anymore. It's a theme park ride.
Yeah, and it's. I had one of those moments last night actually, and scrolling through Netflix trying to find something to watch, and Gravity was there, and I'd heard a lot of good things about it, and we threw it on, and I don't want to spoiler alert if anyone's listening. The bit when George Clooney comes back at the end and knocks, and it's like, oh Jesus, he survived. Because I loved his character. It's like, oh, he's an all-American hero, really nice guy, and then it was all a dream. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah,
he's dead.
That's the only 3D film that I'd say was enhanced by being in 3D. I remember like the first 20 minutes of that when the accident first happened, just not taking a breath in the cinema and kind of gripping onto the armrest. It was the first. It's the only time it was used for, I think, what it was used for, where it enhanced the experience rather than someone trying to jab me in the face with a spear or a wrench. But
that's it. Like if I had the choice of did George Clooney survive or did he die, I wouldn't have got that thing from it, But just taking a little bit back from the movies and stuff like that, it's tied into it with yourself. Like a little bit about you. Obviously, where were you before you had that accident, and where would you like to go from there? So we've kind of got the middle part. Give me a little bit of the beginning, and then a bit of the next evolution of Andy.
So I kind of touched on that before, like America films, this, people who wrote and done reviews, this was like very much our reach. Like I was kind of very much, like I'm 35 now, I was very much pre-internet. There wasn't that connection to the world. Like I remember, things like writing little 4 or 5 page film scripts and writing them off, putting them in envelopes, writing Steven Spielberg Hollywood and putting them in the post box, thinking, I was going to make a film. One of them was about a dinosaur theme park, saying that now, so I probably did one of them.
But what did you call it?
Timmy and the Clonosaurus.
Yeah.
But there wasn't that option for that. Like there was Dave Fanning for years, and that was the only kind of person that would have that. And I was like on Dave Fanning's show the year before last. And that was a real.
Did you meet him? You met your hero.
It really was. It was like of all the people I've met, the one I kind of freaked out the most was probably him, because I remember growing up watching him, and he was like the movie god. But for going forward, I think I like the kind of the way this is reducing, essentially. Like you have a bigger reach than you would have previously. You're not just you're not on 2FM, you're not on RT, you're getting this. And I like that you've got this kind of, I was going to say conspiracy there, I'm staying very much on message, group of people who are hardcore fan base. And I like that your people are delving into things a lot more than they are previously. It's not just a case of that's good or that's bad. You're getting into the minutiae of the filmmaking and about the filmmakers, and I really enjoy that part. Like I know it's most of the audience are like, that's a bit too much, but I love that element of it. Like we me and you have had like many conversations about Predator, and I love all the little stories surrounding that. Like Jesse Ventura and Arnie, having their little one-upsmanship over who has the biggest arms, and things like he's reading Doc Savage, the comics and stuff. Sorry, Sergeant Rock.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be the next. Like I love getting into the little things like that. I love having the 20-30 minute conversations after you leave the cinema, like delve into every little thing about the film.
Yeah, and I think I really enjoyed. You did one a few weeks, maybe a week or two ago, about who's going to be the next James Bond, and that really sparked some interesting comments in the voice comments, and I go through and I'd listen to them, and then I'd be looking forward to hearing what your reply was, your opinion on their opinions, and that interaction I think is really cool. And who knows where that will lead in the future? You may imagine when it fingers crossed it gets to the stage you actually have the actual person from the movie leave a comment underneath. That would be something special when it does happen. Just get this. So sorry folks, go ahead.
Yeah, and I do. I love that interactive part of it where you can kind of talk to people about the various the James Bonds and stuff like that. And it's kind of interesting that you're thinking about people that were commenting on that. Like you'd have someone like Idris Elba saying, like, and he kind of has done that to a certain extent with the things like the Twitter where he's posting up the video saying the name's Elba, Idris Elba, like, and I think.
And the noise interrupted again. We're back in the room. So, we're just talking about you and where the future lies for you in terms of where would you like to go, or would you like to see yourself getting into movies at any stage, writing or directing?
Probably not. No, I had this. Everyone has their one film in your head, but I don't think that's something I'd be too far. It gets so hard to get something like that made as well, and it's kind of a lot of that industry is who you know, not what you know. And I wouldn't say that'd be something. I'm more kind of interested in the actual making of it as opposed to making it. Like I love doing like the interviews and things like that, like getting into the kind of the deep dives with stuff like that, or having disastrous interviews like I had with Russell Crowe or with Marky Mark.
Oh really? Go into that one.
One of my first red carpets was with Russell Crowe. He was over for I think called The Water Diviner. It was his first film he's directed. So of course he shows up late. So basically how the red carpet works is you're assigned little separate sections. They move on, they like interview you. Publicist is standing beside them, moves them on to the next person. You ask 2 or 3 questions, move on. Grand. So I went. How it works is you get to do your interview, then you walk into the film. Then so you get like 2 tickets for that. So I brought my brother. My brother's a big Russell Crowe fan. My brother's 10 years younger than me. So we're standing in the line waiting for this, and my brother's whole thing is to just stand there, take pictures of me when we come, and then we'll go in. Grand. So Russell Crowe comes down. And I'm kind of listening to what everyone's asking. So everyone's asking the same question. Oh, Gladiator. So I want to ask him something that people haven't. So I'd heard he bought the rights to Bill Hicks's life story. So Russell Crowe comes in front of us like, I believe you bought the rights to Bill Hicks's story. How you fix we're trying to make that now. So he puts his hand on my shoulder. And he's like, oh yeah, but see the thing is he goes, there's 2 studios involved, and I can't. If I say this, they're going to drive up with that, and we can't. So basically, he spent about 30 seconds telling me he can't answer my question. The publicist then gets a hold of him and moves him on. So the question I got to ask, he didn't answer. But when he moved on, he's standing facing my brother, who he thinks now is one of the press. So there was kind of rumours at the time that Russell Crowe had been, he'd been seen at a Leeds United game. There was rumours he was buying Leeds. So my brother, in his infinite wisdom, turns around face to face with Russell Crowe and goes, so you're buying Leeds or what? So I'm standing there thinking, that's it, I'm fucked. Because they're going to say, who's this fucking idiot? Who's he with? Next thing, Russell Crowe launches into this spiel about Leeds United. He goes, I was over for a beautiful mind. I was brought to a game. I used to film there. He goes, I own a club over in Sydney, a rugby club. I think that's where we're going. Do you know that? So my brother has just notes. I go, no, I never heard that. He goes, oh, okay. So he goes in and goes, and the thing is, Leeds had lost 5 of their games in a row before I went to the game. And then the rumours came out. They won 3, drew 1 and lost 1. Then maybe it was the kick in the ass they needed. So my brother's like, just nodding. Yeah, Grant, can I get a selfie with you? He goes, yeah, no problem. So my brother has this picture of Russell Crowe where he's like completely deadpan, and Russell Crowe looks like he's meeting his hero. So Russell Crowe walks off then, and my brother turns around to me and goes, "I'm better at this than you are."
Certainly.
Yeah.
Can I get your brother on Limor?
Yeah, he'd probably do a lot fucking better based on that.
And that's obviously a different time to Marky Mark, was it? How did that go?
Yeah, Marky Mark was over for Daddy's. Again, I had to say Marky Mark about 40 times in my head before I went in, so I didn't say it to him. Yeah. So he was over for the Daddy's Home premiere. I
was at that with Will Ferrell. Yeah, I was actually at that in the Survive, isn't it? Yeah, I was there.
So I've actually had a disaster at both of those. So the first one, he came over, was Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg had showed up. Will Ferrell walks up and he goes, "Oh, hi Andy, how are you doing?" I was like, "How the fuck does he know who I am?" Forgetting, of course, I'm wearing big media accreditation with my name on it. I was like, "Oh." So he was lovely, yapping away to him. Will Ferrell was awesome. So next thing, Mark Wahlberg comes down. Again, I'm kind of trying to pick questions he hasn't been asked already. Everyone's going to ask him about the Christmas films, The Departed and stuff. So I asked him about the Mickey Ward film, The Fighter. I'm a huge boxing fan, so it's like, for me, it ended at a kind of a silly point. My whole thing is the Gaddy trilogy. It's like making a film about Alex Ferguson and not mentioning Manchester United.
Right, okay.
So I said to him, I was like, there was plans to do, any plans you can, we're going to include the Gaddy fights and maybe a sequel. And just no eye contact. He's staring at us. He goes, "Yeah, no, maybe we talked about that. It's probably too old for that now." And he's just looking around, and then just wanders off. I was like, "All right, nice one for that. Yeah, I've been standing here for 2 hours, fucking waiting on you."
Yeah.
And again, the same thing for the second film as well. He'd no interest in people. Anyone who was kind of a pretty girl in the queue, he'd stop and chat to them for a while. Unfortunately, I'm not a pretty girl, so he'd no interest in talking to me.
Next time.
Yeah, absolutely. But Mel Gibson was at the second one. And that was an experience. He's Riggs. He's basically just Riggs. He's just this mad-eyed lunatic.
But in a good way or a bad way?
In a good, like he's just this. Like I wouldn't say you'd be able to relax around him. He just seems like he'd be great crack on a night out. Like you might end up in jail, but like you'd have a story to tell. But I asked him about the Passion of the Christ sequel, and he was saying about whatever the last question we had, he ended up saying, "Oh yeah, that'd be a miracle." And I said, "Well, speaking of miracles, the Passion of the Christ thing." But he just grabbed a hold and he goes, "Yeah, that'd be a miracle if that ever got made." And it was like being face to face with Martin Riggs. Like his eyes felt like they were about 2 feet tall. Yeah. I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, I was actually genuinely a bit frightened for a second, and then he walked off, and I was like, "That was amazing."
Well, it's kind of like we mentioned earlier on, the fan of South Park. Those guys are geniuses in their own right, but Mel Gibson gets thrown in there every now and again. I don't know if you saw that episode with the Fantasyland or Imagination Land, and they bring Mel in and he's a lunatic, and then he says, "Well, what if you try this idea?" And he says, "He might be insane, but goddamn, he knows story structure." He is a genius next to madness. And it's funny, I've heard from another source, from a guy who actually worked with him on a movie, who said that he was a very, very nice guy, very easy to work with and laid back. It was, you might know this because your knowledge is better than mine. There was some scenes were shot in Dublin recently to do with the guy. It's a movie about the guy who wrote the Oxford dictionary, and he's in that, isn't he?
Yeah, that's. I can't think. It was based on a book. I've read the book and I can't for the life of me think of the name of it. But what happened was they shot that without securing the rights. So what happened was the studio had the rights to the story, but not the rights to the book. So what happened is the whole thing's tied up in litigation now, and I don't think that film will actually ever be released.
Oh no, because Sean Penn is in it
as well. Yeah.
I've heard stories about him on set from that, and not quite as complimentary as Mel. But
if you're married to Madonna, you're not going to be right in the head, are you?
So that's very. And he's a guy, like you said. There's a few people who say, "I'd love to meet him and have a chat and have a pint with him or whatever." And Mel is up there without a doubt.
Well, he's someone who really kind of like if he had been 20 years ago when all this stuff was happening, it'd be Mel Gibson, he's a rogue, very much the way Sean Penn was. But because he kind of got the tail end of the social media, and obviously what he said and done wasn't fantastic, but you had those people, the 60s and 70s, by all accounts, were fucking bastards. People like Sean Connery wasn't exactly the nicest guy in the world, but because they were, every aspect of their life wasn't under a microscope, these stories didn't come out. And I think if you had that, Mel Gibson would be, revered as one of the, maybe as one of the all-time greats, but he wouldn't have the controversy attached to him that he does now. Yeah, and then we're going down another rabbit hole there, I suppose, is he who has not sinned casts the first stone, and on social media it's very, very easy to be hypocritical and get up on your high horse and how dare you do that, whatever. And a lot of the time people just need to take a step back and say, what would you do in that situation, But anyway, I think where we're at now, 32 minutes, we'll wrap this up before another crowd of people come by and interrupt it again. But Andy, absolute pleasure. Guys, if you're listening on Limor, make sure you get over, give Andy a follow at, what's your username? Andy McCarroll.
There you go, easy one, I should remember that. But go through some of the stuff you'll be sharing via social audio on Limor. Yeah, so at the moment we have my rant about Netflix. We've got one coming up now this week. We're going to be going through the best and worst Irish actors, and actually going through the list this week. You forget just how many great actors are in there. So I'll be interested to hear people's feedback on that. I'm sure I've missed 1, 2, or 20 based on the a few of the comments I've gotten so far. So let me know what you think about who your pick for the best Irish actor and actress would be. There you go. And again, guys, you can interact with Andy via this cast. Leave your voice comments or traditional text comments below, and I'm sure tag him in it, and I'm sure he'll get back to you. And as ever, Andy, I'm sure I'll definitely have you on again because we need to continue this chat in a place less noisy. It's a Sunday. We thought it'd be really quiet here on a Sunday, but it turns out there was a mass on in the conference room behind us, and that's what kept interrupting it. But anyway, Andy, thanks a million for taking the time, and I look forward to the next one. Cheers. Thanks, Shane.